Hey, my name is Cassidy. Welcome back to my channel. And today I wanted to recap the books that I read in January. Some of them were audiobooks and some of them were Kindle books. Unfortunately, I do not have the physical copies. I'm going in order of when I read them, and that's it. The first book I read in 2025 was Neville Goddard's Power of Awareness. If you are familiar at all with manifestation, power assumption, then you already know who Neville Goddard is. And if you don't, he is kind of a big deal in the manifestation community with the power assumption, with the belief that you can harness the energy to bring the things that you want towards you. And with the new year starting, I thought what a great way to get the new year started with reading a book about manifestation, and Neville Goddard was a good one. I will say that I'm not very Christian. I'm not very spiritual like that. So, and he does have a lot of Bible quotes, but that did not stop me from getting the information that I wanted out of the book. The next book that I read was Down the Drain by Julia Fox, which is her autobiography, and I really enjoyed this book. I listened to it over audio. The humor was dry, the narration was straightforward. I think that she does a really good job of telling a story because of the way that she's able to mix in the humor into all the things that have been happening to her. And there's one quote about her waiting in line to see the Pope and her getting slapped, and the whole circumstance is just what the heck. But she has so much humor in all the things that she writes about, and really able to talk about these things that are so personal to her in a way that anyone can relate to, even though these things are crazy, and I don't think a lot of people are going to be able to exactly put themselves in her shoes. Her association with Kanye West kind of thrust her into visibility that not very few people get, right? Because you're dating one of the most prolific rappers, hip-hop artists, producers in the world. It thrust her into a stratosphere that made people think that they knew exactly the kind of person that she was, and they spoke to her like they knew the kind of person that she was. Reading this book, even as a person who has never had a negative thought about Julia Fox, really allowed her to humanize herself, and as I think learning about and most people is going to do with everything that she has been through, it is a miracle that she is even in the place that she is in, and that's amazing, and I really love that for her. Towards the end of the book, I just found myself constantly rooting for her, even though I knew that, things would get better on her side. Obviously, just knowing her over seeing her over social media. I really liked the book. I think a lot of people would do good reading it to be able to humanize someone that a lot of people were so quick to dismiss when they saw that she was dating Kanye West, and you make assumptions about that kind of person, but she's a very, very unique person for sure. The next book that I read was Rouge by Mona Awad, and I've read Bunny before, which is the only other book that I've read from Mona Awad, and this follows in the theme of very weird cultish behavior from the girlies. Rouge follows Belle, who is returning to California after the death of her estranged mother, and she ends up kind of getting tied up into the weird beauty-focused cult that her mother was seemingly involved in before she passed away. And because it's told from a first person perspective, you feel as though you are descending into madness with the main character. It touches on themes about the beauty community, about the routines of skincare, about aging, and beauty and aesthetics is a really big, drives a really big wedge between her mother and the main character, Belle. This ends up being a commentary on beauty and aesthetics, and also how that plays a role with you and other women, and in specifically with your mother. But while this was supposed to kind of be like my bread and butter, I really like talks about your relationship with your mother and complicated mother-daughter relationships, and I like commentary on beauty, and it gets to a point and it gets to too much kind of thing, and I like talking about that. But there are pieces of the story that felt a little bit disjointed to me. While I still enjoyed reading the book and I still had fun climbing myself down into the madness with Belle, that's just the kind of book that I like. It came at a sacrifice of making the commentary something that was going to stick a little bit more past maybe the almost predictable lesson that we and the main character Belle was supposed to get about this. This book is really popular and well liked for a reason, and I don't think that this was a bad book whatsoever, but I was really excited to see this get twisted up in a really coherent package, and there were too many floating elements that made the story disjointed from itself. Next, we had All Fours by Miranda July, and I have to be honest, I only picked this book up because I was seeing it in so many places and on a couple other YouTube channels. On, I think Barnes & Noble was promoting it, Goodreads was promoting it, and I fell for it. It really got me. And I have to say, I went into it completely blind, and I usually do go into books completely blind, and was very much in love with this book. There were pieces of this book that I just plain old didn't like. I didn't like some of the things that happened in the plot, but that did not take away from the eccentricity of the character. She was really funny. The main character is a woman who is approaching mid-age. She's a famous artist who on the precipice of getting over the hill and seeing what's on the other side, on taking the leap to become more into herself. There are a couple of themes of maybe feeling like you have to wait until a certain point to be your most authentic self, and she's feeling like she has reached that moment. Her journey into figuring out what it might mean to reinvent herself, rediscover herself, and not in a way that I would call played out or seen before. It is a little maybe predictable in the way that things end up, but her way to tell a story, and honestly kind of the outrageous methods that she takes in order to get where she gets, was the enjoyment in the story. It also had elements of being super heartfelt with the way that re-emphasizes the importance of growing old with friends, of valuing your female friendships, and being able to rely on community when you feel like you might not have that strong of a grip on reality, or you need to know, like, does anyone else feel like this? I highly recommend this book. I had so much fun reading it. It was so enjoyable, and yeah, that's all I gotta say. The second to last book I read was Beautiful World, Where Are You? By Sally Rooney. Now, Sally Rooney follows the tale of 4 people: Felix, Alice, Eileen, and Simon. They are all kind of in different places in their life, but all around the same age. Eileen and Alice have been friends, I think, since college, and then Eileen and Simon have been friends since their childhood. I think he's like 5 years older than her. It's a story about these four friends kind of figuring out what love means to them, what their politics means to them, and how that intermingles with their idea of relationships and love and yada yada. We are given some insight into how the two women are feeling more than the two men through emails that Eileen and Alice send to each other throughout the book, and then the rest is narrated from a third person perspective. The conversation around love, around politics, is maybe one that I feel like I've had already, and I maybe am ready for a new one. Someone maybe a little bit earlier, like at the beginning of their journey, when it comes to what they think about love and how it plays a role in the way that they act in the world, in this aspect as young people. Kind of scratching the surface of that conversation would probably be the kind of people that would really get a lot out of this book. I am a little bit critical of it, talking about our opinion of ourselves and our relationships and yada 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 without really being invested, or without giving me anything to be invested in when it came to the relationships with the characters. It's a lot of talking to each other without doing much for each other, and so I didn't enjoy reading about the characters. And last but not least, the last book that I read in the month of January was I Who Have Never Known Men. And this book really took me by surprise. I know it's been very popular, and I came into it once again blind, but I loved it. The sentiments that our main character has are so poignant, and the setting that we are given to be having these thoughts so barren to be only having thoughts I loved it. This book follows 39 women who are imprisoned in a bunker. They do not know why they're in this bunker. It is surrounded by guards, and they are like in a cage basically, constantly being watched by guards. The women do not have any real memory of their time before the bunker, and our main character, who I believe is nameless, has never known life before the bunker, like the older women do, because she's around like 12 or so. They're not really sure what her age is. And it's a beautiful commentary on what we have when we have nothing. Who are we when we have nothing and we only have what's in front of us, right? I loved it. I really did think it was going to go in a completely different direction with a name like I Who Have Never Known Men, but the writing was so lovely, just beautiful. The way that we are able to evolve with the character on our feelings about people and humanity is really rewarding, and it's not that long, so things move fast, like plot-wise. I really enjoyed it. I loved it. Probably my favorite book of the month, and would probably end up being one of my favorite books in this year. But yeah, that is all. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.